Hey everyone, it's Brandy and welcome back to my channel, Brandy Janae's Bookshelf. Today I'm here to do a mid-month wrap-up for January. It's a little bit past the halfway point of the month. It's currently the 18th and I thought I would have more reading done, but I've read quite a bit. This is what I'm going into, I guess, the second half, or I'm already into the second half of the month, but everything that I have finished up until the point of filming this video. And I'm going to be completely honest and let you guys know that I'm already not as prepared as I have been in the past. That's beside the point. I have, I think, 8/9 books to talk about, and let's just go ahead and get into it. Like I said, I didn't prep, so sorry about that. Hopefully I can let you guys know what everything is about. Starting off, the first thing that I finished in January was Cinder by Marissa Meyer, which is book 1 in the Lunar Chronicle series. It is a YA sci-fi retelling of Cinderella, specifically with the first book. This is actually a carryover from December. We're following this character named Cinder, who is a half cyborg, half human, who is pretty much like the ward of a stepmom who doesn't want her. This guy found her and decided to adopt her into his family, but he passed away pretty quickly, and now she is basically the property of this woman, and she is forced to work to make money for the family. And in this world, there's this disease that is causing havoc. A lot of conspiracy going on, a little bit of political intrigue. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I enjoyed it. I'm glad that I went with the audiobook route this time around because it started off slow, so I could definitely see that I probably would have lost interest quickly if I didn't have something to listen to that would, push me forward. I think something that is probably going to frustrate me while reading this is the fact that the books are left open-ended, and knowing that each book is kind of focusing on a different set of characters, I feel like that might frustrate me, but at the same time I know that the overall story is going to continue. It's just going to be weird. I have to see how it plays out when I go into the next book, with the new set of characters, but also following along, or how the storyline from the first set of characters is gonna flow into later books. I don't know if that's really everything that I wanted to talk about, but yeah, I thought it was interesting. I want to continue on with the series at this point. Moving on, the next book that I finished was The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, which is the first book in the Mistborn series, I'm pretty sure. In the story, we're following this character named Vin, who was recruited by someone named Kelsier to help defeat the Lord Ruler, who is this king who has been ruling over and oppressing people for the last 1,000 years. That is a very generalized description of this book. This is another one that I gave 4 stars. You're gonna see a trend with all of the books that I finished so far this month. I think we might be breaking their trend with the one that I'm still currently reading. Anyway, besides the point, I really enjoyed, or really was interested in, the premise of the story and how the magic system worked, and consequences and things like that of using these metals. However, I felt like there was so much setup, which I get you need, but I just felt like it might have been too much going on in the beginning. There were some things that I wish could have been done differently. Maybe less time on the prep of getting to where the story was going, but also I know that there has to be some build-up. I know that a lot of that had to do with the character that we were mainly following, her getting training. So I kind of get it, but it's also at times it just felt like it was excessively long, and when it could have been a little bit more concise. Like I said, this one got 4 stars. I'm gonna leave it at that, and we're gonna move on to the next book. The next book that I finished was Sin and Chocolate by K.F. Breen. So this one is a dual perspective following Alexis and Karen. So Alexis is a seemingly human girl who is living in a town or living in a part of the world where they're like magic users but also non-magic users, or just like regular humans, and she's working at this like dead-end job which is not really giving her much of anything, barely any pay, no benefits and things like that. We find out pretty quickly that she's taking care of these two teenagers on her own, that one of them is a shapeshifter, but because of something he has going on inside of his body, whenever he starts to change shape, his body like starts attacking him like it's a virus, and she's trying to get money to be able to get the serum to keep him from changing so that, you know, he's not constantly on the verge of dying. And then the other teenagers that she's taking care of is a human girl who was in the foster system, and I can't remember exactly what happened and why she ended up with them, but yeah, she's like this 20-something, I think, year old taking care of these two teenagers. A lot of money issues going on, and she's trying her best to make it work. And then one day she is out trying to buy a blanket for the shapeshifter teenager, and she ends up running into Kieran, unfortunately for her, and things kind of spiral out of control from there. He seems to take a sudden interest in her, and he keeps popping up, and she's not really sure why or how to get rid of him because of some things that we find out later in the book, which I don't really want to get into. He is doing his best to try to convince her to come work for him for a specific reason. The only reason I really picked this up is I am a part of a Facebook group, and this was chosen as like a book club read for January, and surprisingly it wasn't all bad. However, I will say that this felt like a 400-page tease of a book, and I've heard, I think at least once, that when you're writing a book you should put everything that you have into a book so it doesn't feel like into the first book of a series, so it doesn't feel empty, and then, you know, figure out a plot for the next book, not hold off on plot for a first book just so you can have something to move on to in the second book. And that's exactly what I felt like this did. It's like it kept teasing you, it kept saying this is what we're gonna do, this is what we're gonna do, and then I'm like, okay, this book is really long, it's taking really long to get to the point, and then all of a sudden it's over, and like she just agreed to do something that we've been waiting for the whole book to see whether or not she was gonna do that, and not actually doing the thing that she agreed to doing. So I just double checked, and this series is actually 6 books long. So I really hope that the main point of this first book isn't dragged out for 6 whole books. Like, I feel like it won't be, but I'm also worried that we're gonna have to wait 6 books to get to the final resolution of what was first introduced in this first book. I thought that the world that this was taking place in was very interesting. I really enjoy having a world where magical creatures are known, at least by our main character. I like where they're known ahead of time, so we're not spending 70% of the book trying to reveal, you know, that magical beings exist and how the world works. I enjoyed the characters for the most part. Okay, let me rephrase. I enjoyed a female character, her magic, and then the 2 teenagers that she's taking care of, and I'm curious to see how they're going to change and develop as the series goes on, because I think that there's an interesting dynamic there that could definitely be really good in the future if it's done well. I don't know so much about the main male character. I feel like he's going to play an important role, and I'm sure there's going to be some type of romance in the future because it's already been hinted at in this first book. But like, as far as his actual character, I could care less at this point. I think as of right now, I want to continue on because I'm curious if it's gonna work out. Hopefully it's good. I enjoyed the first book for the most part. This did end up getting 4 stars, but I think I'm gonna go back and adjust some things with Call. So if my rating does end up changing, I'll put it up on the screen, because I'm thinking this will more so, if I was like rating it just on my own, this will probably be around a 3.5 stars, but it ended up like being enough for 4. Okay, so the next 2 books I'm actually going to lump together. I probably shouldn't, but both of these are actually rereads for me. They're from the same series, and I'm gonna talk about novella separately, but I'm gonna just, like I said, put these 2 together. So the next two books I have to talk about is Gunmetal Magic and then Magic Rises by Alona Andrews. Both of these are from the Kate Daniel series. Okay, so this one is a full-length novel that was in between books 5 and 6, and then this one is book 6. Gunmetal Magic is following Andrea. Andrea is the best friend of our main character Kate Daniels in the main series. She is a shapeshifter. Not only is she the best friend, but she also has like a sort of romantic relationship with the male alpha of the Bauta Pack, which is mentioned in previous books, but something happened and they ended up not being together. So this was kind of, I feel like, the book to bring them back together, along with obviously having to have other stuff going on in the background as well, because you can't have a whole full-length novel in an urban fantasy world or series only about the romance. So Raphael is working for a reclamation company, and some of his shapeshifters, or the people that work for him, end up getting murdered. Andrea gets called in to help out, and obviously because of that they end up having to work together. This was good. It's not one of my favorites in the series, only because I feel like she had I feel like enough mention in the main series. She talked about quite a bit, especially when it comes to her and Raphael's relationship. Obviously we don't get a lot of her on her own until this book, so it was nice for that, but I just felt like I didn't care as much as other things. Even though I say that this wasn't my favorite, it did still end up getting 4.5 stars. You know, just because it wasn't my favorite doesn't mean it wasn't a good book. It was a good book. It's just like personal preference. I would have preferred to read about some different characters, or have different characters have a full-length book. And then moving on, I did go into Magic Rises, which is book 6 in the Kate Daniel series. This one is where Kate and Curran and a bunch of other shapeshifters end up traveling to, was it Europe? I don't know. They end up traveling to a different country and to get panacea, which is to help shapeshifters from going loop, which is basically going rabid if you have not read the series. And also some little intricacies that are like kind of gearing you up towards the end of the series, and like some of the major players and enemies that are going to be coming up soon. This is one of my favorite books from the series, I think, because one, it opens up the world. This is the first time we like physically have our characters outside of Atlanta, like outside of the country in general, and having that element along with different packs from that area, and like just a lot was there that no other book in this series has had or will ever have again, I don't think. This is another story from this series that I feel like I wish I could have seen more of. Like I mentioned with the Jim and Dolly novella, that opened up a whole nother part of even just Atlanta, of different mythologies that Kate doesn't know about and that we could have explored. This opened up a whole group of magical creatures where she goes to visit, where I feel like they could have come back into the picture, or there could have been something else where we needed to go and have Kate like go revisit, and we never did. I get it's difficult to do that because she has no easy way to cross the country in the way that the world is set up, especially because, you know, technology could fail at any point, and they had to call in a pretty big favor to get there in the first place. But I felt like that was a perfect opportunity to use that again, and I felt like it was just such a wasted effort. Now, with that being said, I know that they're still working in the world because they've come out with the series that Julie is going to be the lead of, and there is potential for that, but I don't know if they're even going to risk doing that, because at the end of this series, spoiler alert if you don't want to hear, just wait until I put this book down, spoilers now, but at the end of this series, Julie does leave Atlanta for specific reasons, which I won't get too far into spoilers. But at the beginning of this series, she like comes back, and I think other than like a few flashbacks or her thinking about her time away, we don't really get any time outside of Atlanta. And I was just like, that is a huge like drawback of this. Like, you had this book where you opened up the world and like you just never did that again, and I feel like it's such a waste. But anyway, that's the end of spoilers, so that you guys know. So I think I already said, but Gunmetal Magic ended up getting 4.5 stars, and then Magic Rises got 5 stars. These are my ratings for this time around. I'm pretty sure that I already have both of these rated on Goodreads from previous reads, so I won't be updating those this time around, but I figured I would just go ahead and let you guys know. So on Goodreads, my ratings are the same, but if you decide to friend me or follow my Storygraph account, which I now have linked down below, it's like in my defaults for uploading, so it will always be down there with all of my other links. I did have updated ratings for this year for both of these, so it'll be, I guess, accurate there. So the next two are actually also from the Kate Daniels world. I figured I might as well just go ahead and talk about them all together. But that is 2 novellas that I think actually take place before book 6. I think they might even take place before Magic or Gunmetal Magic, before this one. And that is Magic Test and an Ill-Advised Rescue. So we're going to start with Magic Test because I think in the order, that's what came first. I just didn't read these in order. This was actually another reread for me because I had listened to this at the end of an audiobook. This could be possible spoilers for previous books in the series, so be wary of that when listening to me talk about this one. But in Magic Test, we're actually following Julie after getting pretty much expelled from the last school that she went to, which was like kind of an away school. Kate is just like, you need to go to school, you need to do more than just like learn about fighting and whatever the pack teaches you, like you need to be in actual school. Julie's not really happy about that, but Kate ends up taking her to the school. She thinks she's going to enroll, and she's just like, I really have no choice. She ends up finding out that she has been brought there to help investigate what happened to one of the students who has gone missing. They did a tracing spell on her. It says she's still alive, still on campus, but no one knows where she is. And this is a very short story that is just following Julie doing what Kate normally does, figuring out what's going on and helping come to a resolution for the problem that has come up. And at the end of that, we, see that maybe Julie isn't going to be too upset with going to the school. I got a different experience reading it this time around, because when I read it the first time, it was at the end of a book and I listened to it, but I felt like I wasn't paying the closest attention to what was actually happening. So reading it with my own eyeballs, I think probably on my phone, actually no, I read it on my iPad. Once again, I feel like this is the perfect opportunity to give us a lot more than what was given, and I think that's probably my main complaint. And knowing the fact that we never get to see Julie at the school ever again, I just wanted a little bit more. I know I've been rambling on a little bit too much, and I'm not sure if I kept all of that in, but long story short, I just felt like this was missed potential. I know you can't include everything in the story, but even like just simply making this longer, or including another little snippet of Julie having to be an investigator at the school because something else kind of serious happens, or something, something happens. But also I know that that's probably just me because I love these characters and I love the world so much that I just want more from this, and I feel like it could have been done and it just wasn't, and I'm just like, well, that sucks. However, I am wondering, I'm still speculating, if that one character that I really enjoyed, if he will be back in Julie's series, because I feel like he could be a prominent character in at least one of the books. Hopefully not like an evil character or like a villain or enemy or whatever, but someone who Julie like relies on for help, just like Kate is always able to call on somebody and they're like willing to come help. I don't know, I have to see about that series, but I really enjoyed this. If you couldn't tell upon rereading, it was really good, and it ended up getting 4.5 stars. And then moving back over into an ill-advised rescue. Long story short, Kate gets a call because Simon has been kidnapped. She sets off with Derek to go and rescue him, basically. This one is also pretty short. It's not too much to it. I I know as much as I've been saying I wish there was more of this or that in certain things, this one I felt like indifferent to. It was a good story, as all of the stories in the series that I have read so far have been. But it wasn't anything like, oh yes, I want more of that, I want more of that. It was just like pretty typical what I expected from the set of characters that we're following, along with having to deal with some things that they weren't expecting. But it was well done and I enjoyed it. This one also got 4.5 stars. The next thing that I have that I finished was another one that I started back in December, but I never did finish it before the end of that, and that is Solo Leveling Volume 3 by Chu Gong. This one is following this character named Jin Woo, who is living in the world where hunters exist. They pretty much have like abilities above that of a normal human, and because of that they're able to fight these monsters who keep appearing in the world. Jinwoo is actually at the beginning of the story. He is what's known as an E rank, which is the lowest rank of hunter, and he's known as the lowest or the weakest of all E ranks that have ever existed. And he's going into this dungeon with this big group of people at the start of the story, and they all think that it's going to be a cakewalk or like a super easy dungeon because he's there and he never gets to go to anything like super complicated. And they get in there, they clear the first one, no problems, but then they find out after they're not able to leave that it is a double dungeon, and they decide that they're going to go explore the second dungeon to figure out what's going on, and things kind of go crazy from there. And in this third volume, we're following Jinwoo after some things have definitely changed, like a whole lot, where now he has been able to build his abilities beyond his level ranking, and he is getting caught up in these situations because he either ends up in the wrong place at the wrong time, or people are specifically targeting him because of his abilities. And we're just seeing what he gets up to and things like that in this. So I'm gonna start off with the rating, and surprisingly this one only got 4 stars. I was a little shocked after reading both volume 1 and 2. I was surprised that this one ended up getting only 4. I think by the time I finally got around to this, some of the hype that I had from volume 1 and volume 2 kind of died down. But also the fact that reading this one, I feel like it was another volume of almost the same thing. And I feel like after reading 2 volumes of him building up his skills and things happening, I was waiting for something more to happen. I feel like this volume was probably like the turning point to get to like the next step in the story arc, or get to the next story arc. This was probably wrapping up what, or his initial like getting to his like solo leveling, as the title calls it. This is like wrapping up that first part of the story. There were still some really exciting things that happened in here, but I think what really held me back was like the plot, and like maybe 2/3 or like maybe even up to 75% of this was just like so much of like the same thing over and over, just like different circumstances, that I was just like, okay, I'm ready to move on to the next thing. However, with that being said, there were some things that happened towards the end of this that I am just like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, is this real? And like, what is gonna happen from here? So like, I'm just gonna show you this page. I'm not gonna explain it, but as you can see from the cover, this is Jinwoo now, and yeah, I'm just gonna leave it there. So there's some crazy things that happen more so towards the end of this volume that I was just like, okay, what's it gonna happen next? However, I think I have to wait another few months before volume 4 comes out, and then hopefully some things that I would like to happen, but at a level that I wasn't expecting, so I could be blown away again. But as far as this one, it only got 4 stars, but I am still looking forward to continue on with the series. And then the final book that I have finished so far in the first half, maybe a little bit over, of January is House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. And this is the first book in the Crescent City series, which is her new urban fantasy adult series. So in the story, we're following this character named Bryce, who is a half human, half fae woman living in Crescent City. She's best friends with a werewolf, and this werewolf is expected to take over the pack whenever she comes of age, or whenever the old alpha dies. She's expected to take over, but something happens, and her entire pack, I don't know how to explain this, like they have smaller packs within the pack. Anyway, all of her like smaller pack are slaughtered one night, and Bryce ends up coming back home to find the results of that. And then we pass, I think, a couple years, and we get back into the mystery of trying to figure out, or realizing that who they thought had killed them wasn't actually the person who did it, and trying to figure out who was behind it and what actually was going on, and what was the reason behind her being killed, along with some other things. It's kind of like a lot of different elements going on until they come together into a cohesive whole, and that's pretty much how Sarah J Maas's books tend to go. Anyway, like I said, this was a reread for me. Sorry, this is super heavy, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about this. While I appreciated the character development of having to follow, you know, go through a character's life as she's grieving and trying her best to move on past such a tragic event, I feel like this was a little too long. I feel like she definitely could have cut it down, or I was writing out my review in my journal, and I was just like, I really hope that at some point she can find a better balance of character development along with timing, so that we don't have a book that's over 500 pages, because this book is massive, and I feel like we didn't need all of the like spending so much time on every little moment. I feel like I will probably appreciate that later in the series when things start to build up. But having a book like this long, I like, as much as I want to enjoy it, I feel like it took forever. And then I listened to this entire thing on audio, and I still felt like it was just taking forever at points, and I was just like, okay, I'm ready to move on to the next thing. I'm ready to move on to the next thing. Especially because, considering the fact that this is like, I feel like more so like a fantasy romance, urban fantasy type of thing, there wasn't as much of the romance as I was expecting it to be. This ended up getting 4 stars for this read. I am looking forward to the next book, which is coming out next month. And then the final book that I have to talk about that I am currently in the middle of, I thought I would be able to finish this before I went to sleep tonight, but unless I like miss out on sleep, it ended up taking me a little bit longer than I thought to film, so most likely I won't be able to finish this tonight. But just in case, or really it doesn't matter either way, I'm currently reading this. That is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. I'm gonna go through description and probably quick thoughts on this, because this is technically another reread, just so I don't have to talk about this at the end of the month, because if I don't finish it today, it's gonna be like super early tomorrow. Whenever I get up, I'm gonna knock out the rest of it. This one is following this character named Clary Frey. At the beginning of the story, she is going to this club called Pandemonium with her best friend Simon, and while she's there, she sees this group of people like murdering a person. She thinks it's a person, but it's a demon, and she ends up finding out that there is a whole nother world that she didn't even know existed, that consists of shadow hunters, and there is just a lot going on. And we're following her as she learns a little bit more about herself, her past, her family, and things like that. Did not talk about this, but my goal is to try to read the series, or like read the books in the Shadowhunter world. This is where I currently am. It still looks like I have a lot, but this is the end of the book, and then all of this back here is, it's like sneak peeks of other books and things like that. It's this weird thing because like I feel like it's not like super great, but I'm still enjoying it for the most part. I don't feel like it's bad. I feel like I've heard some not so good things about maybe the rest of the books in the series, which is why I've been hesitant to read the rest of them. But anyway, like I said, for the most part, I am enjoying this. I don't know my rating as of like this time reading it. I will put it up on the screen because I should be finished with this by the time that this video goes up. I am also currently reading the Magic Gifts novella, which is part of the Gunmetal Magic. It's like at the back of this, which is why I thought this was more than what it was. I'm gonna have to read that at some point. Other than that, I don't know what I'm gonna pick up next. After all that rambling, that's everything that I need to talk about for the first half of the month. Finished 9 things so far, working on number 10 and then, or 10 and 11, and will be making my way through. So I didn't get through as much as I was hoping to, because like I said, I have over 30 books on my TBR with Deck of TBR, all the mangas for Manga Spice Cafe I haven't read, the read along, and then other books, mainly books from the library that I've checked out that I wanted to get to because I think they're going to be due back soon where I can't renew them. It ended up being a lot more than I was expecting, but I'm doing my best to make my way through them as quickly as possible. Let me know down in the comments what are some of the things that you've read in the first half of this month so far, and if you don't want to do that, let me know what you're looking forward to reading in the second half of the month. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed, as well as subscribing if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next one. Bye.